Hey, you, welcome to or welcome back to Keisha's House, Motivation and Inspiration. I'm Keisha, and as always, I'm so glad that you stopped by. So today is Monday, July 15th, and we're just going to dive right in because I have a lot to share with you, and there just never seems to be enough time. Now, those of you who are watching me on the video, you may be like, girl, it's July. Why do you have a sweatshirt on? Because it's freezing in my hotel room. But nonetheless, we're going to get past that. We're going to focus on our quote from last week, which was the following: always remember your focus determines your reality. Always remember your focus determines your reality. I like this quote, and I said this last week, but I like this quote because it's to the point. It is to the point. There's nothing that you can argue with when it comes to this quote. Where your focus lies is your reality. If you say that you want to eat healthier, but you're not focused on adjusting your diet, in 6 months, you're not going to see whatever results you were hoping for. If you want to work out for like a marathon and you have not been focusing on doing your runs, you're not going to be prepared. I mean, it doesn't matter what the topic, it applies if you are wanting to work on your degree. But if you're not focused on getting your classes done and getting a good grade on your classes, you're not going to graduate. It's one of those quotes that's just practical, and we have to put it in practice. And the challenge last week was, what is it that you are going to put your focus in? What is it? And were you successful? Now, obviously, if you didn't follow along from last week, that's not a problem. Just hop right in, right where we are at this moment. The reality is, if you could look back at last week, do a quick reflection, would you say that you put focus in an area and were you successful in it? And if you weren't, that's not a problem. Where from last week do you think you could improve by putting in more focus? So one of the things that I focused on last week was getting back to reading a book. So I swore years ago that I was not a reader, and then I started reading. And I say it now all the time that I challenge anybody who says they don't like to read, once they find the genre they like, you will become a reader. And I got it done. Did read a really great book that I am going to be sharing with all of you. And if I had to give myself a grade from last week, I'm going to give myself a B. Now you may be like, well, if you read your book, doesn't that deserve an A? It's my grading scale. And it's the same for you. It's your grading scale, and you get to decide what's an A, a B, or C. And well, we have nothing lower than that because we don't fail here, because we don't fail life. So if you had to grade yourself from last week with in mind that the quote is always remember your focus determines your reality, what grade would you give yourself? An A, a B, or C? And how can you improve? Because the beauty about life is that we're not aiming for perfection. We're aiming to do our very best. So I'm giving myself a B because yes, I got my book done. However, it wasn't in the way that I like to. I like to read my book a little bit each day, really take some time to meditate on it, and kind of just plowed through a whole book in one day. Yes, it got done, and I understand that the end result is a win, right? For me anyway, but it's not the way I like to do it. So I'm going to give myself a B, but that's totally okay because it's my grading scale, and I'll just focus on adjusting for the week ahead. But I always say, get your grade, think about it, identify areas that may need your attention, and then get rid of it. Because, well, last week is over. So let's dive right into this new week. So I told you I read a book, and the book is titled The 13 Things Mentally Strong People Don't Do by Amy Morin. Now, one thing that I really like about this book is that it's written by a therapist, and she shares a lot about her personal struggles in hardship, in losing people that she loved. And that's how we started. But one thing that I really love about books is when I have these moments to have like these unexpected spurts of education. So what do I mean by that? I love when there's history tied into a book that I just wasn't expecting it to be there. So in this book, she lists 13 things that she believes that mentally strong people do not do. Now, I'm not going to tell you what all 13 of them are because I'm going to say you need to go read the book. If you don't want to read it, you can listen to it. It's about a 6-hour listen. Speed it up and you'll be done in like no time, like 3.5 hours. But I wanted to focus on one particular, actually, we're going to do two particular items from the list of 13. And the first one was the following. She believes that mentally strong people, they don't resent other people's success. They don't resent other people's success. This is why I love this. We can get really caught up in focusing on other people. And like we learned last week, our focus determines our reality. When we get so focused on watching what other people are doing and getting resentful for the fact that they're succeeding, that means if we're focused on them, we're not focused on ourselves. So the very place that we're not happy in, or the very place that we want to excel in, we can't move forward because we're too busy gazing. It's kind of like when you're driving, right? You're driving and you see an accident off to the side, and what happens? Everybody starts to slow down. Why? Because they're too busy gazing in the other lane to see what's happening. That is what we tend to do in life. We are too busy gazing and watching what other people are doing, and we're not moving forward. Because what happens when you take your eyes off of looking forward? You end up slowing down because you can't see if there's a car driving quickly in front of you or if they're stopping. So when you gaze and you take your attention off of the direction that you're heading because you're too busy looking at what's going off to the side, we end up slowing down. So the progress that you could be making, you're losing out on it because you're too busy focused on what somebody else is doing. So in the book, like I said, I love learning different history. Does the name Hershey and Reese's sound familiar to you? It probably does. Yes, they're chocolate candies. That's what we know of them, right? Well, obviously, somebody created Reese's in Hershey. Specifically, Milton Hershey created the Hershey Company, and B. Reese's started the Reese's Company. But there's a little bit of some history there. All this happened around the 90s, and Hershey actually was Reese's employer. Reese's used to work for Hershey's. Reese's left the company and started his own candy company in the same exact city. Could you imagine? Your employee left and then created a business that was your competitor in the same town in the 90s during the Great Depression. Like, what? And I think most of us, there's some lessons here. I think most of us would say we might get a little frustrated with that individual. But it turns out that both Hershey's and Reese's got along well. In fact, their relationship went on for decades. Why? Because Hershey's, instead of being resentful about Reese's going off and creating his own company, he helped to support him. In fact, Hershey's supplied the chocolate that Reese's needed to wrap around that peanut butter filling that we all know and love. And when they both died, they ended up merging the companies, and Reese's is now, to this day, as all of you know, one of Hershey's top producing candies. All because these two individuals continue to work and respect one another. Again, mentally strong people, they don't resent other people's success. When Reese's left, he could have resented Hershey's and tried to find another chocolate company to supply the chocolate he needed. Hershey's could have said, absolutely not. You left my company. I'm not helping you at all. But they both were able to be successful. Why? Because there is opportunity for them both. And because they worked together, they both thrived in a time in history where companies were falling apart. In fact, Hershey's lost everything. He actually started off selling caramel candies, and he was selling caramel candies during the day. In the night, he would work on his chocolate. He got one big loan, or one big job, or I guess order, got a loan from the bank to fund that order, got paid back the bank, and started launching Hershey's. In the middle of the Great Depression, he went from literally nothing to being one of the richest people. That's unheard of, right? All happening in the middle of the Great Depression, and mind you, with candy. It's just, you can't make this up. But they absolutely could have sabotaged each other, but they didn't. So one lesson learned, mentally strong people, they don't resent other people's success. This is the second thing. Mentally strong people, they don't expect immediate results. I'm guilty of this. I think we all are. I think we're kind of programmed, right, to believe that as soon as we want something, we want instant gratification. But the reality is we have to recognize that some of the things that we are aiming for is going to take time. We may not get immediate results. Hershey's did not get immediate results. Reese's did not get immediate results. It took time. It took long hours, and it took working late into the night. It took time. So when you think about it, when you think about being mentally strong, it's recognizing that you don't need to worry about what other people are doing. You need to worry about your lane, your path, your future, your goals, and recognizing that it may not be overnight success, but just because you are not seeing overnight success, it doesn't mean that you stop putting in the work. It doesn't mean that. It means you have to continue to keep progressing. They also talk in the book about Disney. So the Disney company actually started off with a different animation character, and the initial character was actually stolen. Like all the rights to it were stolen. So they went back and then they created Mickey Mouse. It took them years to get a company to actually produce their Mickey Mouse films, and I'm using air quotes for those of you who can't see me, but it really took off once sound was incorporated into film. There may be a technology, there may be a something that doesn't even exist in this moment that may be a key factor to your future success that you don't even know about yet. But the reality is you have to continue to do your part now, so when the opportunity comes, you're prepared. Another example is the Dyson Company. So the Dyson Company started off in Europe, I believe England to be specific, and Mr. Dyson was tired of his vacuum losing suction. And this shouldn't be surprised. The man is literally in his commercials. I remember when the commercials originally came out, and he tells this story, and he got fed up with it. And none of the large vacuum companies cared about what he developed. So he went and tried to find somebody to fund it, and he finally said enough is enough. He created his own company. Dyson is one of the top vacuum companies in the world now. It's $1 billion company. From his initial thought to his his initial success, 14 years. It took 14 years from concept to reality. 14 years. If he expected immediate success, he would have given up. It took 14 years. And I'm quite confident he didn't say, I want this to take 14 years. But he was persistent. And he wasn't worried about what the other people were doing. He wasn't worried about the other people's opinions. Because those companies didn't buy his invention. Those companies didn't believe. I said I was only going to share 2 things that were in the book, but another one, a third, a bonus, I guess, is the fact that mentally strong people aren't afraid of failing. They're not afraid of failing. It's okay not to get it right the first time. It's okay not to get it right the 10th time. It's about continuing. So that leads me to this week's quote. All life is an experiment. The more experiments you make, the better. By Ralph Waldo Emerson. All life is an experiment. The more experiments you make, the better. If you change the word experiment with experience, it sounds like this. All life is an experience. The more experiences you make, the better. When you have opportunities, when you have experiments, you learn either there's success in what you did, or some people may say failure. I don't want to say there's failure there. You just now know more information. If you do an experiment and it doesn't work, well, that combination wasn't a good combination, but there's something to learn from. There's something that you can grow from. You can develop, but that means the next experiment you do, you can troubleshoot and try something different. It's about recognizing that life doesn't have to be, again, focused on perfection. It's focused on all of these different opportunities, all of these different experiments. Keep trying. If it doesn't work, you just try again with different combinations. You learn from it. You grow from it. You develop from it. So this quote is our challenge for this coming week. Are you willing to have experiments? Are you pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone? Are you giving up too early? Or are you willing to keep trying? All right, I guess I'm giving away way more than I thought. Another item in the book was that mentally strong people are comfortable with change. When you look at an experiment, you may think that you have the winning combination and it may not work out, but you have to be willing sometimes to take a step back and to change your perspective. And by doing so, you may find the right combination, that winning combination. But you can't do that if you're being fearful. You can't do that if you're too busy watching someone else's success and not putting in the time and effort and focus into what it is that you want to aim for. So that's the challenge for this week. That's the challenge for this week. Are you willing to put in the time? Are you willing to be okay with failing? Are you willing to understand that you may not get instant gratification out of this? You may not get instant wins, but are you willing to have many experiments? That's the challenge for this week. And I don't necessarily think it's one of those where this is the challenge for this week and then after this week it's done. I don't think so. I think this is one of those, let me ponder and think and figure out, one, am I too busy resenting other people for being successful? Two, am I being held back because I'm fearful of change? Three, am I trying to seek immediate gratification? Am I quitting on myself and my dreams because it just feels too hard? There's experiments that you could be doing. There are opportunities that you could be seeking. That's another way to look at this quote. All life is an opportunity. The more opportunities you make, the better. Are you making those opportunities? Are you making those experiments happen? So this week, I would say let's have the challenge be, let's prepare for the experiment. What is it that you need to do? What is that step one so you can prepare for the experiment? You know, I remember doing experiments in science class. You don't just walk in and say, all right, let's do an experiment. No, you go and get all of the equipment you need. Do you need a flask? Do you need a certain chemical? You set it up. Take this week to identify what you need, and then each week start to prepare yourself to set yourself up so you're ready to conduct the experiment, or you're ready to actually dive into the opportunity. That's this week's quote, and that's this week's challenge. It's going to be a multi-week challenge, I guess. But are you up for the challenge, I guess, is the real question. I really enjoyed this book, and there's so much more to it. And nothing that's going to be earth-shattering, but definitely opportunities for you to go, yeah, that might be an area that I need to improve in, or you know what? I think I'm solid in that one. And you can give yourself your gold star. So the book was The 13 Things Mentally Strong People Don't Do by Amy Morin. Highly recommended. I hope you have an amazing week. See you soon.